Welcome to tonight's edition of Daily Record Hotline Live. It's been a hectic day of top flight action. There's still games going on. Well, there's a game going on. Latest from Tannadice is it's still 0-0 between Dundee United and Aberdeen. We're hoping to be joined from a couple of the grounds by our guys that are out there. Gannon at Celtic Park, Andy Newport was at Fir Park, where there was, some big results in terms of. Okay, let's start with a mea culpa and a hands up. I may have said something even just maybe as recently as a week ago, about something silly about officially being a title race back on. Now, I did mention the caveat, and the caveat was if Rangers took 9 points from the three fixtures over the festive period. Now they've obviously taken one from the first six, and they'll probably take nothing from the third one. I did say that I reserved the right to say that the title race, I would officially call it off again if Celtic went to Ibrox and won, but I don't even need to wait for that. Celtic 4, St Johnstone 0, big scoreline, another comfortable routine victory. Celtic look as if they're picking up steam again. Hibs 1, Curle 0. That's a brilliant result for David Gray, who has come through a real sticky patch and is now picking up form, and they're heading on an upward trajectory. Motherwell 2, Rangers 2. We'll talk about that in a minute. Andy Newport will join us from Fir Park. I'm joined also by Scott McDermott. Ross County 2, Hearts 2. 2 late goals for Ross County. Incredible collapse. Hearts remain bang in trouble. St Mirren 1, Dundee 2. Dundee bring to an end a difficult run of results. I can see Andy has joined us. Scott will also, I'm sure you'll want to have your say. That's another shambolic Rangers performance, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah, certainly first 45 minutes was every bit as bad as last week in Paisley. Again, we just spoke to Flute Clement there. Admits that they basically just threw away another half of a game. Then forced it a desperate scramble in the second half to try and get themselves a result. But I mean, we're obviously looking at now a team that are 14 points adrift in the table. You've got to ask some major questions about the manager. I think I just posed the question to him there if he had any concerns that he still had the trust of the board, if he feared for his position. He just said it wasn't his concern. He was just more concerned about the fact that his team had again thrown away this 45 minutes as they did on Boxing Day. So, but I think listen, he might get another couple of days leading into Old Firm game, but I think if this team manages to slip up against Celtic for the 7th time since he's come in, if he fails to get a win at the 7th attempt, then I just can't see how the supporters will accept that, potentially falling 17 points behind Celtic by the 2nd of January. I think the manager is in a real sticky position at the minute.
But he's making it harder for himself, Andy. I keep saying it. What was that selection all about today? What was it all about at St Mirren? This is a guy who's making the job harder for himself by making decisions that nobody else can fathom.
He's come in and he's given a sort of impassioned defence of that. We asked about if he regretted making so many changes again. He said that obviously Leon Balogun out injured after the knock he picked up at St Mirren. Guys had the flu, so that's why those two were out. But in terms of Igamani and Czerny, said they were tired. They weren't feeling 100%.
We're all tired.
I'm knackered.
It's been a long Christmas.
I've got a bad back, but no, this is no. I mean, listen, I think he's waiting a rod for his own back in that sense. I think at times this season he's cut his own nose off to spite his face. I think, obviously, he makes the point that no team in the world, plays its top stars every minute of every game, and that's correct. But right now he's scrambling. I think you can there is some justification on that, because you can see that Czerny and Igamani looked tired at St Mirren. They looked well off the pace in that Boxing Day game, so perhaps freshen up was the right move. But only if you get the guys that are capable of coming in and replacing them. When you're bringing Oscar Cortez in, who hasn't played since September, Kieran Dowell, I mean, where they plucked that one from, I'm not sure. I mean, just his third start of the season, but that's a guy who's become the poster boy for Rangers' decline, really. He's a guy that the fans largely are despairing. So, listen, I think I can understand why he felt he had to make the changes, but I think part of management is making strong decisions. I don't think that one worked for him. Obviously, they're just
happening
so far off the pace in the first half, so far off.
It's happening so regularly, and I mentioned, and part of the reason that I kind of suggested that we could get an interesting second part of the season was because I believe he stumbled into picking a team that works. I don't think he's done that by design. I think it was sheer accident. And the more that I look at these decisions now, the more I'm convinced that was the case. Rangers had a purple patch because he chanced upon what a proper, a proper attack, proper variations in the final third looked like, with players that he'd previously kind of written off. To me, Andy, I'll ask you this and then let you go, but when you look at the selection and the use of players and substitutes, Bayrami is left on the bench, I think, until the 89th minute when there's a salvage operation in full effect. Cortez starts from nowhere. Matondo is thrown on the pitch before Bayrami, and of course he starts with Dessers. And everybody knows what happens when you start with Dessers. He's forced into a situation where he has to take him off at half-time. The body of evidence now mounting up against Philippe Clement and his decision-making looks absolutely compelling, overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, if you go 17 points behind Celtic midway through a season, I'm not sure there's many, much going in your favour in terms of the arguments you can make to keep your job. I really think this game at Sunday, I think in terms of maybe not in the board's eyes, I mean, he's just come in, as I say, in the press conference here and insisted that he still thinks the board are on board with the plan, the evolution, as he called it, that they set out at the start of the season. But whether the punters are aware of that or not is a totally different matter. And I think if you see an outburst, if there is a loss on Thursday, then no board are going to put up with that. We've seen it before. As soon as the anger and the frustration and the fury gets turned at the director's box, Ibrox in the act. We saw it with Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, we saw it with Michael Beale. We've seen flashes of it with Philippe Clement, and then, as I say, he had that slight upturn. That bought him a few more days, but listen, I think there was almost apathy there at the end there. I think there was so many of the fans had seen this kind of performance before that they just accepted it. But I think if you lose to Celtic at home, we know away support, I think you'll see an anger. We saw scenes of that last season when Michael Beale's team, where again away support lost 2-0 at home, the place went berserk, and I think you'll see signs of that again if Rangers don't get the result. And to us, there's no signs that Rangers will do anything other than lose to Celtic next week. The track record in these derbies under Philippe Clement has been, one of defeat. The two draws that they've had have been high-scoring affairs in which Rangers have been lucky not to shoot themselves in their own foot. They've had to scramble back to get those two draws. So, listen, I think this is a huge game, not in terms of the title race, but a huge game for Philippe Clement's future Rangers manager, because if he loses it, I think you'll see an outburst from the supporters that would make it impossible for him to cling on as manager.
Andy, we'll let you go, mate, and thanks very much for that. And listen, have a cracking new year and all that. Have a nice time.
You too, boys. Cheers. Thanks, lads.
Sorry, Scott, we'll get a word in edgeways in a second, but I'm just being told we're also joined now live from Celtic Park by Mick Gannon, and it's a tale of, well, one city, but two completely different teams at the minute. And I imagine, Mick, you can talk me through it, but I'm guessing that was a fairly comfortable afternoon's work for Celtic.
Yeah, all right, chaps. Do you ever get the feeling you're at the wrong kind of party? There's like all the drama happening elsewhere. And this was just a pretty run-of-the-mill. I mean, listen, I thought Celtic today were pretty impressive. I thought they were quite good the second half against Mull the other day, but here they really kind of turned up and it just looked like a side coming to the boil. I mean, it took half an hour to get the first goal, but it was on the way right from the first kickoff. Celtic were right on it. And it couldn't really go much better for Celtic. When they rotated some of the squad, they gave Callum McGregor and Dyson Maida, the likes of these guys, put them on the bench, a bit of a rest. The guys coming in, the level of quality didn't dip at all. It was a strong team that's put out, and they just strolled it. I mean, I think it was 31 shots on goal they had. It got to half time, and St Johnstone had one the no touches in the Celtic penalty area in the first half, and they get another, I think, 4 or 5 in the second half, all within about 2 minutes at half time. Absolute stroll. It was 4 going on 8. St Johnstone just had no answer to it, just outclassed thoroughly.
Are we seeing, Mick, are we seeing Celtic getting back up to the sort of levels they were in early November? Are they just peaking again at a crucial point in the season?
I think just that the Celtic's levels are so much higher than the rest. I mean, even when they won 4-0 against Motherwell without getting out of kind of second or third gear, I think they went through them a wee bit more here. It's just a kind of clever the way the squad's getting rotated. I mean, guys like Arthur Johnson coming back in after a few games out with a wee bit of an injury, back in, he's hungry, he's dangerous. Nicholas Kuhn getting a wee break after a wee knock, coming back in the last to start. Lightning again today. It's levels. It's Celtic's level. Celtic's not playing their best. They're still winning by 2 and 3 goals. I mean, they're averaging 3 goals a game in Scotland. With 15 clean sheets in 18 league games. And they're absolute. I mean,
it's astonishing, isn't it? The stats mounting up are astonishing.
Listen, I take the point that Rangers are malfunctioning under Clement. He's really struggling. They're spilling points left, right, and centre. But Celtic's performances and the results are piling that pressure on him because this isn't a regular season we're seeing now. I mean, you look at we're talking about the calendar year 2024, 2 defeats in 50 games in all competitions. I mean, really, it's kind of crept up on people, I think. But this record has been, in the last 12 months, has been astonishing, really. I mean, to only lose to Hearts 10 men and then to Borussia Dortmund in 12 months, it's ridiculous for him. And no team is going to keep up with that in Scotland. I mean, Rangers, for all their problems, even if they were closer to their best, I still don't think they're going to keep up with that kind of level because it's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, we said, I think, right at the start of the season, Mick, I kind of said that I think Celtic would smash through the 100 points barrier this season, and there is absolutely no evidence to suggest that's not going to be the case.
Well, this is meant to be the time when you grind it out, you get the odd 1-0 win, you scratch it, you bite your way through the festive period. Just won back-to-back games 4-0. I mean, all right, you drop points at Tannadice, but listen, a good team up there, and it's not a bad point in the grand scheme of things. But I mean, to go through the Christmas week with back-to-back 4-0 wins and room to spare, it just shows you where they are right now. And they couldn't be asked for being in better form going to Ibrox on Thursday, that's for sure.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, Mike. What was Brendan Rodgers' reaction after the game? He must have his tail right up ahead of that match because he does enjoy a trip across the city, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. I mean, listen, he's a man in total control just now. I mean, everything he touches is turning to goals at the moment. I think he is also keen to kind of highlight this year and how special it's actually been. I mean, put it this way, they've actually won more trophies than they've lost games in 12 months. 3 trophies and 2 defeats. So I think he's keen to kind of highlight that as well, that they couldn't really do much more in the last 12 months, and they're going there. Listen, he's this is a fixture that he's bossed it in 2 spells. I mean, with 1 defeat in 20 games.
It's astonishing.
But I think, though, I don't think he ever disrespects it. I don't think he'll take Rangers lightly, regardless of the problems they've had. And then remember the cup final a few weeks ago. It was a close encounter, and there's been plenty of close games over the years, even when perhaps, as I keep saying it all the time, listen, I've seen poorer Celtic teams beating better Rangers teams and vice versa. These games can throw up some weird results sometimes. Just not when Rodgers involved. He's only lost 1 out of 20, but he does relish it. But I still think it's a tough game. I think going to Rangers, going to Ibrox, no away support. I was a bit of me surprised that Philip Clement is still on the job. I've got to be honest.
Yeah.
14-point gap. I think even he'll be surprised he's still on the job at this point in time.
Well, I think he only stayed in the job earlier because there was no one there to sack him. But he now knows there are people in positions up the stairs who will have the mandate to do exactly that. Yeah,
I mean, no old firm manager can survive being 14 points behind their big rivals. And before New Year.
By the way, Mick, never mind the 14 points, but yes, that's a sackable offence. But if you go into your first 7 derby games against Celtic and fail to win any of them, you can't. I don't know anybody that would survive. I don't think that's ever been survived before.
Yeah, but I think maybe now at the stage that even winning on Thursday, does that actually mean that everything's going to be hunky-dory?
Keep them. Yeah, that could actually be. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think Rangers at that stage, I think he's completely... I mean, I think he won back a few fans with that wee kind of mini revival they had. When they played, listen, a great performance and result in Nice, did well against Spurs. and we're competitive in the cup final. But listen, not getting thumped by Celtic isn't an achievement. You can't be hanging that. That's not. I mean, we're talking about the moral trophies and all that stuff. That doesn't exist. And it's in the last week or so, it's just gone completely off the rails again. It's back to where they were kind of after. I mean, listen, after the United game, maybe about 5-6 weeks ago, if I had been any other kind of season with any other kind of structure in place behind the scenes at Rangers, it'd been that'd been plant pot under the arm, under the car park, in the car park, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Point. So he survived that period to get that revival. But are they any further forward? I don't know. I always feared that the Rangers squad wasn't deep enough and strong enough to cope with the winter. And by the way, we're only halfway through it. January's another nightmare month. The game's coming thick and fast. Big game's coming thick and fast.
Well, tell me that, just in terms of that, Mick, and then I'll let you go and crack on with what you're doing. Get back to the bosom of your family.
My own bosom needed after Christmas.
In terms of team selection issues, any fitness issues going into Ibrox that come about at the end of today's game, Mick, or is it all pretty straightforward?
That's the thing. It's all cliched, nice headaches for Celtic. I mean, they've got Arthur Johnson back fit, Kuhn back fit. They managed to give Maida and McGregor some time to give them a few minutes at the end to stretch their legs, but they're fully firing and everyone seems to be fit. Obviously, James Forrest is out for a longer term. Interesting for me, I think Arnie Engels today, that's the player that Celtic signed for £11 million. He was superb.
That's interesting.
Him coming off, I would suspect that he'll be starting.
He's just played his way into a starting place.
I think he'll start at Ibrox. I think Bernardo played 90 minutes here, suggests that he won't be starting at Ibrox. I think he'll play with the start on the bench. So I think it'll be Hatate, Engels and McGregor, middle of the park. I think Alex Baye played 90 today, suggests he won't start at Ibrox either. I'd imagine Greg Taylor will be back in if he's all right, which I think he is. Kyogo, no-brainer, big game player for Celtic. Scored 2 goals a day, back in the goals, lively. And you know his record against Rangers is pretty impressive. He's a guy for the big occasion. So yeah, I think that's the only real kind of talking point for Celtic, really. I think, and I think that's been answered today. I think Engels coming off with kind of half out to go suggests that he's going to straight in a team sheet for Ibrox. And if he plays the way he did today, then understandable, because he was, like I say, he was really impressive.
Right, brilliant, Michael. Thanks for joining us. And go and do your work, and as I said, get up the road, and we'll see a lot of each other over the next few days, won't we? Because we're both on over the week.
You'll see me in my bosom all week, so see it's like that.
What a horrible thought to end on.
Take that, Emmy's with you.
Right, cheers, Mick. Scotty, the comments are absolutely flooding in, they're flying in. A lot of seriously unhappy Rangers fans, a lot of very, very gleeful Celtic supporters, and extremely confident ahead of the trip across the city later this week. Give me your view on what you've seen today. Where do you think it leaves Rangers, Clermont, the whole shooting match?
I think Clermont will be gone if he doesn't win on Thursday, Keith. And to be honest, I think after today, the people upstairs at Ibrox, Patrick Stewart, obviously coming in as new chief exec, I think it'll probably have even crossed their minds tonight whether to relieve Clermont of his duties even before the Old Firm game. I know that sounds pretty dramatic, but they've obviously
hold on, Scott. You think there'll be conversations going on tonight about whether or not you leave that man in position ahead of Thursday? You genuinely think it's reached that point tonight?
Yeah, I think so, because at the moment, you touched on it earlier, there's no way, there's nothing at all to suggest that Rangers will get into that game at Ibrox and go and win it. Do you say Clermont's 7th attempt at an Old Firm derby? He's not won any of them yet. I think Andy touched on it, with the home crowd on Thursday, no away fans. But the Rangers crowd are going to turn up there, obviously expecting a big performance, but at the same time, almost knowing that as soon as Celtic go ahead, or as soon as Celtic get a foothold in the game, it could turn toxic at any moment, and that would be a real bad moment for Clermont. As I say, if he loses the game, I just don't see any way. I don't see any way back for him. But today was a shambles. I mean, on and off the pitch, to be honest. You mentioned it earlier. The team selection, absolutely staggering. I thought he made a staggering call against St Mirren the other day, leaving Nico Raskin on the bench, who's been his best player for weeks. Has to throw him on at half-time for a...
It's all over. It's genuinely all over the place. And I think, Scott, there's been periods, and I think, as I said, he had that purple patch where he just threw mud at the wall, and some of it stuck, and the stuff that stuck was giving Raskin more game time, bringing Hadji in from nowhere. All that stuff kind of made Rangers better. I find it astonishing that going into this crunch period in the season, he then rips it all up, starts throwing jerseys around again.
Well, you mentioned it earlier. The reason he did almost stumble upon that lineup with the likes of Hadji coming back and Egerman emerging. But the reason they had that purple patch was because for the first time this season, there was a bit of continuity and a bit of consistency with team selection. Suddenly fans could relate to a starting 11 that they thought...
There was almost an identity.
Yeah, this might actually be good enough to go on a run and put a run of results together. And as you say, to go into a period like this, you're already trailing Celtic. They've got two relatively comfortable home games, with all due respect to Motherwell and St Johnstone, and knowing that you need to go away from home, where the away form has been abysmal all season, by the way, before that, and to then, as you say, start ripping it up and making changes and resting guys,
putting Dessers back in the starting lineup.
Honestly, the Dessers and Dowell decisions today. I mean,
where does that even come from?
I know. I mean, it has to stop. I mean, this has to be the end for Dessers being regarded as a starting number 9 for Rangers. The Kieran Dowell debate, if there ever has been one, has to be ended now. Listen, it's a bad look for any manager, I think, when he picks a team.
100%.
The man in the street can tell this is going to go pear-shaped. I mean, you'd have probably been... As soon as that team sheet dropped today, I got a couple of texts and phone calls for pals and that saying this is going to go pear-shaped for Rangers here. This team is wild, that team selection for a tough away game that they need to win. And as I say, it's a bad look for a manager when the guy in the street can see what's going to happen, but the manager doesn't. And how he put his faith in Dessers and Dowell starting that game, and then basically had to hold his hands up at half time and say, "Listen, I got it totally wrong. I'll throw on
for the second game running."
Exactly, I'll throw in the guys that you thought should have started. Basically, I mean, it's just a terrible indictment of a manager, and that's where Clement. And I like Philippe Clement in terms of dealing with him at press conferences and stuff like that. And I think, you can't argue with his record before he came to Rangers, but I think you mentioned it earlier. I mean, I don't think I've ever encountered a manager who hasn't helped himself in a job by some comments, and especially by team selection. And this whole sports science thing.
Well, I was just about to come on to that, Scott. I mean, he's killing himself there. He makes himself look so weak. Basically, the sports sciences are coming into his office and say, by the way, no starting him. But I tell you what, Cyril Dessers got a whole load in the tank. It's astonishing.
But Keith, we had this conversation, after the Dynamo Kiev game, before the season had started, when he came in and they left Cherny out of the Dynamo Kiev home game. To
qualify for the Champions League.
He'd been man of the match the previous game at home to Motherwell. And sports scientists had told him, I mean, so they get knocked out of the Champions League, lose potential 40 million quid, and yet he still doesn't learn his lessons. He still gets to December where he's trailing in the league by 10, 11 points, and he's still making these decisions. I mean, it's absolutely astonishing.
I think somebody said, did a sports scientist ever get sacked for losing 3 points on a Saturday afternoon or whatever? It doesn't happen. No. And, I also wonder, Scott, what the science would say, what the data will say. If you're throwing a guy like, for example, Cherny this afternoon, has to come on at half-time with his team 2-0 down, has to then run himself to a standstill to try and get Rangers back into it, manages to help salvage, I guess you could say, a 2-2 draw.
Yep.
But surely, if Czerny went out at the start of the game and gave it 45 minutes or an hour, and just helped Rangers get themselves into a comfortable position, surely that would take less energy than this frantic, run about with your pants on fire for 45 minutes to try and avoid another crisis.
Keith, Czerny and Eagerman were having to chase down every loose ball in the second half because they were the two guys who were making things happen for Rangers. So you're right. I mean, they must be using more energy in that situation than they would be starting a game and trying to get the team in front and trying to get them into a comfortable position where they can come off after an hour. It's ridiculous. And Clement's post-match comments about how basically attacking-wise in the first half they were actually okay. It was their defensive display that was a problem. And by the way, their defensive display was a problem. It was shambolic again. But if he thinks the defence is the problem, why is he not making changes at the back? Why is Leon King not coming on for Robin Proper, who was having yet another absolute nightmare at the back?
He's almost inexplicably poor. I actually felt St Mirren's winner at the weekend that he could have done so much more when the ball was laid back for the winning goal. I thought he was all over the place at that. I thought again today, it just looks like he's a competition winner. I mean, how much did Rangers pay for this guy?
Well, $1.5 million, which was supposed to be an absolute bargain because they'd exploited a loophole in his contract. I mean, just a poor signing, doesn't look equipped for Scottish football.
Body language is terrible. He's pointing and appealing for free kicks, and I did that again at Motherwell's opener today. Doesn't
look up to it physically to deal with the demands of Scottish football. Listen, he's even spoken himself about how he's struggled to adapt. I mean, how that wouldn't be an issue before you sign him, I don't really know. I mean, I mentioned a piece this morning in the Sunday Mail. I mean, for me, the last 3 left-sided centre-backs Rangers have signed for money have went and got Jack Simpson, Ben Davies and Robin Proper, none of whom are anywhere near good enough to play for Rangers. And that's going back to the bigger picture and a whole new discussion about recruitment and everything else. But Proper doesn't look up to the job. He hasn't looked up to it since he came in. And it's a major worry for Rangers, obviously, going into the Celtic game.
I was just going to say, could you imagine wee Kyogo rubbing his hands thinking, I'm up against him Thursday? Yeah. I mean, he'll be licking his lips at it.
Well, he struggles for pace. Proper, he likes to drop deep because he knows he struggles with balls in behind. We've seen it a couple of times a day in the first half. But you're right. I mean, Kyogo, Maeda, Kuhn, they will just be licking their lips. And another issue, Keith, about Rangers, I don't know if you'll agree, but I mean, what's happened to Jack Butland the last?
Oh yeah, I do agree. Completely agree. He's blowing it. He's blowing it for the opener at St Mirren. I thought he was awful today. The one where he get out of jail with the Tony Watt one, where that goal could easily have stood because there wasn't much in that. And then the one where was it
Casey hit the bar.
Casey's header. He's got to see that over the top. He's a big guy. How can he not touch that over? I think you're absolutely right. He looks to me as if his confidence is shot.
Yeah, I thought he was poor for the first goal today as well. I thought he can try and save it with his feet. I know it's difficult for keepers to get done with their hands when it's so close, the ball's so close to their feet and their body, but he's got to try and save it with his legs.
Do you know what I thought, Scott, for the first goal? I think that because of what happened at St Mirren, he stopped. I think he was coming for that ball, and then maybe it's held up a little bit. He's hesitated. He's decided, I'm not doing that because of what happened at St Mirren, and it was the wrong decision. I think if he comes to the edge of the box, he probably gets there first.
The problem is, just throughout all this kind of turmoil at Rangers, he's been one of the few guys that fans could rely on. They thought he was he's a pretty consistent 7, 8 out of 10 every week. He'll dig you at a hole with big saves. He's an experienced guy. As you say, I think his confidence looks shot to pieces. I mean,
and his decision making. Totally erratic.
The decision at St Mirren, again, I said that this morning. I mean, it's just one instant. You're nobody slaughter the guy, but I mean, it was such poor decision, an awful piece of goalkeeping to decide. And it cost Rangers big time. And I know the performance was miles off it, but if they could have got in at half-time at 0-0 at St Mirren and then had the reaction second half, there's every chance they probably would have went on and won the game. But they gave themselves a mountain to climb, and it came from absolutely nothing other than Butland making a really poor decision. And as I say, again, getting into the Celtic game, as I say, I think his confidence looks short. They've got problems all over the team now, and he's one that you never really expected. But he looks miles off it as well, which I never thought we'd be saying.
Right, okay, Scott. We'll go through some of the comments here just to keep the guys updated. Just now, the second half is underway at Tannadice, still goalless between Dundee United and Aberdeen. David Taylor, watching live on Facebook, there will be a major backlash in the stadium on the 2nd of January if Celtic score 4 or more goals, similar to the drama over 30 years ago at Celtic Park. Well, I wouldn't like to encourage that, David, but the Rangers fans are right on the point, aren't they? They're right on the point of a full-scale revolt. Yeah,
which is incredible given a few weeks ago, I know you're getting yourself a bit of stick for it, but the Rangers fans thought they turned a corner. I mean, I'm not sure if they thought they were going to get back into the title race, but when Celtic dropped points at Tannadice, I'm pretty sure Rangers fans looked and thought, listen, if we can win it, St Mirren and Motherwell, and then go and beat Celtic in the derby to make it 6 points, I mean, suddenly that can give you a massive boost of confidence. It gives you a bit of momentum. It puts a dent in Celtic. Now, that might seem overly optimistic, but that's what they were thinking, given the decent run of form. And I'm saying decent because I don't think it was any more than that. I think people maybe getting carried away a wee bit with the league results. Again, I think St Johnstone, Kilmarnock, Dundee. With all due respect, the kind of lesser lights of the Premiership. So, but there was a wee bit of optimism there, and I don't think they've seen this coming. I mean, Clement said that after the St Mirren game, but as we've touched on, he's not helped himself. He's absolutely killed himself with poor decisions, some baffling team selections, and it's come back to bite him.
Scott, the comments there about how hostile things are likely to get at Ibrox if things go wrong for Rangers on Thursday. You mentioned earlier that you believe that tonight there should be conversations going on at boardroom level at Rangers about whether or not to stick by Clement or pull the trigger on him before Thursday. Do you think if they pull the trigger before Thursday, it at least gives them a little bit of respite? It might lighten the mood around the place? Because the hostility is all going to be aimed towards the dugout, isn't it? Or I take that back. There'll be some venom for the director's box as well, I would imagine. Yeah, listen,
possibly it is a very tight turnaround, and that's why, although I'm saying I think there will be discussions tonight at board level, I don't think they'll make that decision before the Celtic game. I think Clement will get the derby, and then they'll have big decisions to make after that. But I do think it will be, listen, Andy said it earlier, you can't be 14 points behind Celtic under any circumstances come the turn of the year. I mean, it's just not good enough. I mean, 14, I think this I heard the stat on Sky the day, they've won something like 3 of the last 14 away games.
Yeah.
That's just unsustainable.
They're woeful, isn't it? It's a woeful outfit.
Aye. I mean,
again, John Curle watching live on YouTube. Clement should have picked his strongest team for the past 2 matches to get the most points in the bag before the Celtic game. Another 2 miscalculations by Clement. He's spot on.
100%.
But it's more than miscalculations. This is why I use the word unfathomable. I don't know how anybody would look at that and think what John said there isn't the right thing to do.
Keith, I don't know how Philippe Clement, weeks and months ago, when Rangers were having were dropping points, the thing he kept asking from his team was for consistency. He kept saying, we need consistency. That's the next thing for this squad. We need to get... How can you possibly get consistency when you're making 7 changes from one game to the next? It's absolutely impossible. We said it, he stumbled across a starting 11 that got decent results, They went into an Old Firm Cup final and held their own, even though they ultimately lost it. And yet he decides to rip it up for league games when he's trying to catch Celtic at the top of the league and trying to create some kind of title race. I don't get it that the caller is spot on there. You had to get into these games. Forget sports science. Forget MD's telling you have to get into these games and play your strongest 11. And people might say, "Oh, Celtic have made changes." Now, you can make changes when you're 11 points clear in the. Like Brendan Rodgers has that luxury. By the way, Brendan Rodgers wasn't chopping and changing his team the first 10 games of the season. You could pretty much pick Celtic starting 11.
Yeah.
And that got them into a position, or has got them into a position
where has allowed him to make changes when he feels somebody needs a rest or an afternoon off.
And he's now got the luxury of today's game, giving Callum McGregor a rest, bringing him on. I think he came on for the last 20 minutes, so that he's absolutely fresh and ready.
Just ticking over nice.
Yeah.
A comment here from Thomas Burns watching live on YouTube. Keith, remember when you said 9 points was not as comfortable as 11 points? How does 14 points grab you? I've put my hands up to this one. I mean, Scotty, that is one thing now. The size of the gap in terms of points, there was this possible scenario that we discussed that Rangers could go into that game knowing a win might cut the gap to 6 points.
Yeah.
Now they're looking at going a defeat and it's 17.
That's incredible, isn't it?
I mean, but it's like, does not remind you very much of last season when they were in it. They were really close. It was neck and neck. Philip Clement decided to go in the lap of honour because he drew an Old Firm game at Ibrox. And then they blew it. They went on this catastrophic sequence of results, which blew the thing, out the water in terms of Rangers being competitive. It's happened again. Same mistakes.
We're sitting here quite rightly, I think, and fairly criticising the manager for decisions and team selection and stuff like that. And I think that's justified. And I've banged on about this now for a few years at Rangers. It feels like a lot of years. These players, the mentality and the attitude of these players, and it was the same the day Keith got into that game. I mean, you'd have thought after St Mirren, they would have absolutely flown out the traps. It didn't matter what the starting 11 would be. You'd have thought they would have a rocket up their backsides, have learnt a lesson for Paisley, and come out, as I say, absolutely flying. They've just not got it in them.
Do you know what, Scott? Do you know, there's no lessons to be learned. See, at that point, had they gone to Paisley, had they picked up 3 points, taken the momentum into the next game, then you're still looking towards the Old Firm game thinking there might be something on that match. But the fact is, whatever kind of chink of light that there was for Rangers in the title, it disappeared in Paisley and it's never coming back. I mean, Celtic will stomp all over them now from here on to May. And I think it could get very messy for Rangers and in front of a full home support on Thursday. I think it's got mess written all over it.
Well, it certainly looks that way. I mean, you said earlier, Brendan Rodgers loves that trip across the city. I don't know the numbers, but I think his record at Ibrox is terrific. It won't faze them at all. I don't think, in terms of not having any fans there, they've been there and done it now several times already. They will be absolutely relishing it. They will see. Listen, they would never admit it, and I wouldn't expect any Rodgers team to take their foot off the gas. But let's not kid ourselves. They will know. No, they go and win at Ibrox on Thursday.
They've got a chance to really put their foot on the throat.
Yeah, but that's the title done. I mean, that's the title clinched at Ibrox. I mean, if it's not clinched already, but to go 17 clear at the turn of the year, no, it's insurmountable. And Celtic will then be able to, as ridiculous as it sounds, they will be able to concentrate on other things. No, they'll be able to concentrate and go and
keep them fresh.
Yeah, for Europe. No, they can almost prioritise the Scottish Cup when it comes around to go and try and get the treble. They will have that luxury because of the points gap, and that's why that's too much for Rangers fans to stomach, and that's why they'll absolutely demand a change if they aren't already. Certainly on Thursday night, if the result doesn't go their way.
Shango watching on YouTube. Thanks, by the way, everybody who's got in touch tonight. Totally bombarded. Sorry if I can't catch up with all of you. Shango, my bosses never looked at me and say, you look burnt out today, so take a day off. What a load of mush Clement spews. He needs a telling. Well, yeah, I think we'd both agree with that. On the other hand, John Watt, again on YouTube, Rodgers is managing the squad superbly. He really is, Scott, isn't he? There's an art to it. There's an art to building a squad, but there's an art to knowing when to dip in and out. You know, I think, for example, today, Cal McGregor's such a key figure at the heart of that team. He's the heartbeat of the midfield. Do you know what? Take an hour off, son. Come on, and as Mick said, just you can keep your legs ticking over for 20 minutes at the end.
Yeah, the big difference, Keith, is when Celtic leave players out, the guys coming in are maintaining a level. When Carl McGregor comes out, when Paulo Bernardo comes in, you know what you're getting from him. Even when Luke McCowan comes into the midfield this season, hasn't looked out of place. Maybe apart from Canadice last week, the levels haven't really dropped. Compare that to Rangers. You leave Eagleman out today. Dessers comes in, so poor for 45 minutes, has to be hooked. Kieran Dowell comes in from nowhere. I think I'm right in saying Kieran Dowell's last start was away from home at Tannadice, and he got hooked after 50 minutes or an hour because it wasn't working for them. Same again today, just not at the same level. No, you're swapping Czerny for Dowell, you're swapping Eagleman for Dessers. The difference is too big, and that's why the decisions that Clement is making is so I feel so foolish, because if he thinks his squad is strong enough to be able to do what Celtic do and chop and change and give guys a rest, he's absolutely delusional, because that squad is nowhere near strong enough to be able to chop and change willy-nilly, especially when you're chasing trying to get back into a title race. The quality is just no there. As we've said now several times, he managed to get himself a starting 11 that looked as if it was at a level. It was at a level that competed with Spurs. It was a level that won in Nice. It was a level that were able to compete with Celtic at Hampden. You need to keep that. No, that has to. Of course, you can tinker one or two. Of course, injuries are going to play their part. But to make radical changes, and listen, I mean, he said the day Hadji's ill, Balogun's injured. That's fine. There's nothing you can do about that. But the other ones, to chop and change key players for a difficult away game. Listen, no Rangers manager's ever going to get away with that, and that's why I think he shot himself in the foot, and it's why I think he'll be hanging on for his job.
Yeah, and do you know something? I think just to sum up, Scott, I think he's killed himself with this refusal to see what everybody else sees in Cyril Dessers in terms of what he can't do. I don't know if that caught him by surprise today, the standard of Dessers' performance, but it was a disaster class in how to play as a centre forward. Everything he did wrong, but none of it came as a surprise, because we've all seen it over and over and over again. If we can see it doing what we do from the sidelines over and over, how is it possible that a guy who's actually, supposed to be an experienced manager,
he started
can't see it for himself? It's just astonishing.
I think a few weeks ago when Rangers had a really poor performance against Dundee United at home, Dessers started and they came off at half time. So I mean, these performances shouldn't
come as a shock. No, exactly.
Anyway, I've said it since he came in, since the start of the season. Dessers is nowhere near good enough to be a number 9, a starting number 9 for Rangers, or a first choice number 9. And he showed it again today. Nowhere near the level. Eagleman, remember, by the way, Eagleman's nowhere near the finished article either. We were talking about
but he's so much better than Dessers.
But, you see the difference the second half, mate. 2 finishes, wow. I mean, the irony is, Keith, I actually think Dessers is better coming off the bench. I think there's games when he's come off the bench, when other teams are tired, and he's got himself 1 or 2 goals. I think someone told me the other day, it was if you actually look at his record, going way back to Feyenoord, he scored a lot of goals off the bench as well. And that's where he should be for Rangers. If he's at the club, he should be on the bench playing, second or third choice striker. So he came in for the call today, basically ahead of Eagleman and Danilo as the number 9, because Danilo is obviously playing in that kind of withdrawn role. It was just astonishing. And Clement, as I say, he's paid the price. And if it doesn't go his way on Thursday, then I think it's hard to find a way back from.
Well, he just has to hope that the sports scientists pick a good starting 11, doesn't he? Final comment goes to David Dewar, watching us on Twitter. Said it a few weeks back. Clement out now, and Barry Ferguson and Kevin Thompson in till the end of the season. Get a bit of fight back into the team. I think it's telling you everything you need to know, Scott, when people are already come up with who they want to see in the job next.
Yeah, 100%.
There's no way back from that.
No, it's tough, and that's why I say, as much as I don't think it will happen, at full time today, people upstairs will have been thinking, what do we do here? You've got Alec Ray there, obviously a kind of club diehard, knows the club inside out, knows what it takes to win Old Firm games. Do you turn to him, even if it's just for the derby, and they might get a reaction at the players for 90 minutes, might go and get a result? I don't know. It's a tough one. As I say, I think the time scale is so tight that they'll keep Clement in position for the Celtic game, but it's as I say, another defeat against Celtic, and it's just impossible, and you don't really like talking about it. You don't like to see guys losing their jobs, but the reality of the situation, the reality of this city, this rivalry, you can't keep losing Old Firm games. You can't be 17 points behind Celtic, and even on a smaller scale, you can't be a Rangers team that doesn't know how to win away from home, and that's the case with this team at the moment.
Well, a massive week ahead then on various levels. Yes, I have declared the title race officially off again. But I think there'll be other issues which will now come to a head over the course of the next few days. Scott McDermott already thinks that discussions will be ongoing tonight at Ibrox concerning whether or not to pull the trigger on Philip Clement ahead of the Derby game on January the 2nd. Well, let's see. We'll keep you across all the news at Record Sport and the newspaper, online, and feel free to come back at us with any comments all across our socials. And if I don't speak to you before then have a very happy new year, and thanks very much for watching and contributing. Cheers, everyone.